A warning to our audience, the following story contains graphic descriptions and images of police violence. We now turn to Virginia, where a lieutenant in the Army Medical Corps is suing two police officers who pepper sprayed him, pushed him to the ground, pointed their guns at him during a traffic stop at a gas station last December. Lieutenant Caron Nazario, who is a Black Latinx man, was wearing his Army uniform at the time. Nazario says he drove to the gas station to avoid pulling over in a dark road after he noticed a police car flashing its lights at him so that he could be somewhere public and well lit while he interacted with them. Video of the attack in the town of Windsor, Virginia, has sparked outrage.
Keep your hands outside the window.
My hands are right here. What's going on?
Get out of the car now.
Get out of the car. What's
now.
Going on?
Get out of the car now. Get out of the car now.
I'm serving this country, and this is how I'm treated.
Yo, look, guess what? I'm a veteran too. I learned to obey.
Get
out of the car.
What's going on?
Get out of the car now.
What's going on?
What's going on? You're fixing to ride the lightning, son.
I'm sorry, what?
Now.
What's going on?
Get out of the car now. Get out of the car.
Sir, just get out of the car. Work with us and we'll talk to you. Get out the car.
You received an order. Obey it.
I'm honestly afraid to get out. Can I?
Yeah, you should be. Get out.
What's going on? What did I do?
Get out now.
I have not committed any crimes.
You're being stopped for a traffic violation. You're not cooperating at this point right now. You're under arrest
for a traffic.
You're being detained. Okay, you're being detained for
a traffic violation. I do not have to get out the vehicle. You haven't even told me why I'm being stopped.
Really?
Get your hands.
Get out of the car now. Get out of the car.
Get your hands off me, please. Get your hands off me.
You know what?
Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. I didn't do anything. Don't do that.
Sir, get out of the car now.
Don't do that.
Hey,
don't do that.
Now.
Don't do.
Look,
I'm trying to talk to you.
Okay.
I'm trying to talk.
Get out.
Just
relax.
Get out of my car.
Can you please relax? Can you please relax?
Get out of the car right now.
This is not how you treat a vet. I'm actively serving this country, and this is how you're going to treat me? I didn't do any. Whoa, hold on. What's going? Hold on. Watch it. Watch it.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car now.
That's up. That's
Get out of the car now.
Sir, just get out of the car.
I'm trying to breathe.
Get out of the car now.
That's up. That's really up.
Yeah, get out of the car and get on the ground now. You're going to get it again.
I don't even want to reach my seatbelt.
What our radio audience might not be able to see is he's getting pepper sprayed at point-blank range by the officer. Lieutenant Caron Nazario was then forced to the ground and handcuffed. The officer who deployed the pepper spray, Joe Gutierrez, was fired last week, days after the public video of the release of the video was public, but nearly 4 months after the actual incident. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam said he's directing the state police to conduct an investigation. We go now to Richmond, Virginia, where we're joined by Jonathan Arthur, attorney for U.S. Army Second Lieutenant Caron Nazario. Can you explain how this happened? Can you explain why they stopped him? And that terrifying comment that this police officer made as the lieutenant was saying, "What did I do wrong?" He said, "You're fixing to ride the lightning?"
It's incredible, isn't it, Amy? And thank you for having me. That in response to a calm, question, hey, what did I do wrong? One of our law enforcement felt it appropriate to threaten a man with, state-sanctioned murder. That particular expression, ride the lightning, is colloquial for, being electrocuted in the electric chair, what Virginia called Old Sparky. And there's an even more grotesque layer to that statement when you take a look at the way that the death penalty has been disproportionately applied to African Americans and people of color in Virginia and in the South. It's a terrifying statement, especially when you're facing the barrel of a gun, and especially because you have been pulled over ostensibly because one of the officers said you didn't have a license plate, which was, in fact, factually false.
In fact, he had just bought this car. Is that right? It had dark tinted windows and the license was in the window?
Yes, the dealer where he purchased the vehicle had placed the temporary tag in the back upper right-hand corner of the rear window. And one of the maddening things is when you take a look at both of these officers' body-worn cameras. Before they're obscured by the officer's firearms, the body-worn cameras picks up the presence of this license plate. The officer that initiated this traffic stop ultimately says, "Yeah, I saw it when I got out of my when I got out of my car, but I was too busy dealing with you." It belies belief.
And you have the lieutenant saying, "I'm afraid of police," and he said, "You should be."
Yeah. So, after having to deal with these inconsistent commands, right? Officers saying, "Keep your hands out of the window," and other officers saying, "Get out of the vehicle," and you can't do the same thing. You can't do both of those at the same time. To say, "Hey, I'm scared to get out of this vehicle." Well, a reasonable person should have been like, "Well, let's see what we can do to de-escalate this situation." But that's precisely the opposite of what the town of Windsor and its police force did. Instead of de-escalating, Joe Gutierrez says, "Yeah, confirmed, after having threatened to murder my client, that my client should be afraid to get out of the vehicle." That's wholly unacceptable. The man has no business being in law enforcement.
And explain how this actually first went down. You have Lieutenant Nazario seeing the police lights, but afraid to pull over on a dark road. So drives slowly for another minute until he finds a well-lit area, which is a gas station, then pulls over.
That's correct. And, one of the really, really troubling statements in this whole interaction, and there's a few of them we can talk about, is Joe Gutierrez saying, "Hey, I knew what you were doing. I knew you were pulling over to a well-lit place for officer safety and for my safety and for yours. It happens all the time." And, I think he says 80% of the time it's a minority. And they may inform some of his behaviors that we find so baffling.
Amazingly, the Washington Post reports that Caron Nazario's wife, Raquel, is a cousin of Eric Garner. Eric Garner, of course, the African-American man who was killed by police in 2014, put him in a chokehold, took him down. Video of the rest went viral. As he said 11 times, "I can't breathe." Caron Nazario called Garner his uncle.
Lightning's not supposed to strike twice, right? In the same location, in the same place. And I think it's a testament to how brutal and how violent our police are. When this type of violence occurs twice to the same family in two different states, hundreds of miles apart. I think it lays bare some of the systemic problems that America is facing with how our police interact with the people they're trying to protect. They're supposed to be protected.
So Lieutenant Nazario was wearing his uniform. He even said he was afraid to release his seatbelt because he'd have to reach down, and that could be an excuse for the police.
That's correct. What would have happened, I think he was forced to, which one of those two officers he was going to listen to. Did he keep his hands out of the vehicle so everyone could see it, or did he move them down so he could see, his seatbelt? And luckily, I think he picked the right officer to comply with, to keep the hands out of the window. Because, from looking at how these two officers behaved with their guns pointed at his head, it's not unreasonable to think that had my client tried to comply and taken his seatbelt off, that they would have murdered him right there at the BP in Windsor over a traffic stop.
So you've filed a $1 million lawsuit on behalf of the lieutenant. What are you calling for in addition?
So, there's a couple of, the overriding purpose of this lawsuit is to put a stop to this behavior. However, we have to do it. We fight with the tools that we are given. So, my client's looking just to hold these officers accountable under law and stop this behavior. So we're seeking for the federal court to say, hey, this behavior was illegal. And there's some things that are even, I think, more troubling from a constitutional standpoint than the violence. And that's both of these officers then threatening to destroy my client's career if he speaks out on the issue. So we're asking the federal court to declare those actions illegal and unconstitutional. We want a jury to say the same thing so we can write this in legal stone, and we can use it as further precedent down the road so that others can hold other officers accountable, because they will not stop this behavior unless there is accountability, until there is accountability. And finally, there are the monetary damages. Now, the law says that my client is entitled to be compensated for the damages that he suffered, right? For the attack, for the pepper spray, for the constitutionally shattering actions of these officers. And the law also says that the jury can award exemplary damages. And this is to make an example out of the conduct, to punish the conduct, to keep the conduct from happening again. And if we can't get these law enforcement officers to change on their own, then another way to do it is to make it so expensive for these municipalities moving forward to continue operating as they are that will bankrupt them or force them to change their behavior.
Well,
so everything we're doing here is
Jonathan
to stop
Arthur,